Move third reading of Bill 201, an act to proclaim Magna Carta Day.
201. Ms. McKenna has moved third reading of Bill 201, an act to proclaim Magna Carta Day. Further debate? Again, I recognize the member for Burlington to lead off.
Thank you, Speaker. I'm so thrilled to be here speaking at the third reading of Bill 201, the Magna Carta Day Act in memory of Julia Munro, MPP. The road to getting to this bill to third reading starting 6 years ago when Julia Munro first introduced the bill. I want to thank all MPPs for your support at first and second reading. A special thanks to the members at the Standing Committee of Regulations and Private Bills, especially our committee chair, the great member from Mississauga-Malton, and our newly elected vice chair, the wonderful member from Ottawa South. The bill was considered by committee on October 7th, 14th, 16th, and Speaker, I was pleased to receive support at committee from Omar Haredai of the Durham Community Legal Clinic, which provides legal services, information, education, and representation for historically marginalized and low-income residents of Durham Region. As we begin third reading of this bill today, I can see the finish line. I want to take a moment to look back at where we started. So, Speaker, when I was driving here today, I was thinking about the very first time I came into this House in 2011, and Lady Munro, who she's affectionately known for, we sat right across there in the third row up, and we sat, Minister Scott sat between us, so, but Thursdays we had our PMB, we had duty day. And I learned so much from her when she would sit there. She would sit and talk, and funnily enough, she never did tell me she was a teacher, but you just knew she was a teacher by the way she conducted herself. And there were just so many things that she would have loved. So I want to mention a few things today. So she would just think this government house leader's done a phenomenal job, and I'll tell you why. Because today, PMBs are doing what we're doing here today, which is 9 o'clock this morning, so everybody can appreciate them instead of Thursdays when most people have gone home. So she would be thrilled that that standing order was changed. She would also be thrilled because PAs now have an opportunity in this House to actually get up because they know their file and be able to continue in the House just as opposed to being out there. So I know she would just be thrilled with the changes that this government House leader has made, the member from Markham-Stouffville. And I just want to also shout out, first of all, to say I know the member from King Vaughan, it's his birthday today, and I'll tell you, when I used to sit across over there, she would love ministers like that because she would say how they made our lives so easy because they knew their file. And so happy birthday to him first and foremost. But I wanted to point that out because she made comments about ministers all the time and how wonderful they knew their portfolio. I had a conversation this morning with the former leader of the opposition, and this is what he said. She really revered the institution and the important mission we were dispatched to do. She had great respect for MPPs and all of those who made the legislation function, the traditions of the place, and its history. Debate was thoughtful, meaningful, and researched. She was never a heckler. She always listened. That demeanor and approach made her a natural deputy speaker. So that was lovely that he said that. And then I actually spoke with the member from Oxford, and he said to me, he said, Jane, I went numerous times to her riding, and what she was like here.
Sorry to interrupt the member, but when you step over here, you're out of the range of the microphone, and we're not hearing you as well as we could if you were standing by the microphone that is lit. Thank you.
So he said that he constantly would go and help, you know, when she had her riding, he would go up. And he said what she was like in this House was exactly what she was like in the riding when he used to go and speak there. But he also said that she came 2 times to his riding in Tillsonburg for her dog shows. And he said as much as she knew that her dogs were the best to win, she walked around and encouraged everybody there that they had an opportunity to win as well. And he also said to me, he said, Jane, the most wonderful thing about her was she never lectured, she never repeated her opinion on you. She always just was thoughtful of the things that she wanted you to hear and what she wanted you to say. So when I got in here and we both sat over there on Thursdays for duty day, I just learned so much, and we had, of course, the same people that were there. And just a couple of funny things. John O'Toole used to always grab his cookie and put it in the drawer in a Kleenex, and she used to laugh because he used to run in and get it. And then I was thinking this morning driving in about Frank Gleese as well, and he used to get up and take his glasses off, and she used to say every time he took his glasses off, it's go-to time, because he would get talking away. So I just wanted to bring those because I was driving in this morning and thinking about all those wonderful things about her, and just wanted to just tell a bit of a story about that. And she also used to say, "You'll make it what you make it here, Jane." And she used to say, you know, what people think of you doesn't define who you are. And then there was always so much talk about the past in here, and she said, people always talk about your past because they're insecure of your future. And there were just so many things that I remember that she used to say to me about those things. So I just wanted to bring those up. I've got notes everywhere, so I'm going to go back over here, Speaker. So Julia Munro was inspired. She had just purchased a reproduction of the Magna Carta at an auction, and it gave her an idea. As a longtime teacher, she saw an opportunity to raise awareness through a piece of legislation. In her words, people don't know a lot about Magna Carta. To me, that's just all the more reason to bring awareness to it. That's why on April 2nd, 2015, York Simcoe MPP Julia Munro stood up in this place and said, "Mr. Speaker, I'm excited today to debate my private member's bill, Bill 23, the Magna Carta Day Act, which proclaims June 15th each year as Magna Carta Day. Today, Speaker, I'm honored to continue where MPP Munro left off. Let's take a moment to review some of the legislative history of Julia Munro's Magna Carta Day Act. She first introduced it on July 23rd, 2014. She introduced it again on February 28th, 2017, and again on March 20th, 2018. It was her last piece of legislation. All three times, the bill passed first and second reading with all party support. 6 years later, I'm introducing her bill again, this time in her memory, as the longest-serving female member of the Ontario Legislature. She taught high school. She was a history teacher in Markham and Newmarket for 24 years. An interesting bit of trivia, she taught Bare Naked Ladies drummer Tyler Stewart at Huron Heights Secondary School. When he was asked who was the most influential person that led him to music, it was Lady Munro. Before the 1995 provincial election, Julie decided, in her words, that she was tired of sitting around the kitchen table, complaining about politics, and decided to get involved. She was elected to the Ontario Legislature in 1995 during the Mike Harris sweep, defeating New Democrat Larry O'Connor in the riding of Durham-York, getting 61.8% of all votes cast. She was re-elected in 1999, 2003, 2007, 2011, and 2014. In government, Julia Munro served as Parliamentary Assistant to the Premier, Government Whip, Parliamentary Assistant to the Ministry of Transportation, Chair of the Management Board, and Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of Culture. She lived on a farm near Sutton with her husband John and her daughter Genevieve, and she loved dogs. Many of us referred to her as Lady Munro because she was an inspiration, a role model for many women. Julie had great courage and was known for her sincerity and for always keeping the public good foremost in her mind. As a politician, she was respected across party lines. She was passionate about history, the Constitution, and proper governance. This is why recognizing the importance of Magna Carta in our democracy meant so much to her. She was respectful and compassionate. She cared deeply about the people she served, but most of all, Julia Munro was kind. So many of us here in this place have wonderful memories of Lady Munro. Our Ministry of Transportation, who in 2018 was elected in Julia's former riding, and of course the member for Barrie Innisfil, who worked for Julia in her riding and at Queen's Park before her own successful election in 2018. I also want to acknowledge again the support I've received in moving this bill forward from our Minister of Heritage, Sport, Tourism, Culture, Industries. My friend, the NDP member from Windsor-Tecumseh, back in a debate for this bill back in 2017 said, and I quote, We in this chamber are here because we are able to stand on the shoulders of those who came before us. We are here because of established and accepted rules and traditions, and these rules and traditions are protected by law," unquote. American author Diana Gabaldon, known for the Outlander novel series, once said, "Things you cherish and hold dear are like pearls on a string. Cut the knot and they scatter across the floor." Our parliamentary democracy, like a string of pearls, depends on strong connections, a foundation from which everything is built upon, Speaker. Magna Carta, or more simply, the Great Charter of Freedoms, has been described as the greatest constitutional document of all time and as England's greatest export. But Magna Carta came about, though, a mediated settlement. King John of England had just lost a battle. He needed money to reclaim lost land. To raise money, he increased taxes and created new ones: income taxes, imported export taxes, inheritance and estate taxes, and even a tax on widows that wanted to remain single. Then, after a series of bad harvests, which resulted in increased demand for food and high inflation, the barons, the 1%, revolted, and England was on the brink of civil war. On one side, there was a very unpopular king, and on the other, landowners that were at war with over how much money they wanted from them. In the middle of Archbishop Langton of Canterbury, who asked as the mediator, they met at a neutral site, Runnymede, near Windsor. Let's get one thing straight. John King didn't come to the table willingly. In fact, the barons actually chased and captured him. On June 15, 2015, he was forced to sign a document that put limits on his power and guaranteed various rights. The key principles of Magna Carta included that nobody is above the law of the land, the freedom from unlawful detention without cause or evidence, trial by jury was established to settle disputes, and a major first step in women's rights: a widow could not be forced to marry and give up her property. Now, King John wasn't really interested in giving up power, and as MPP Munro said when she first introduced the bill in 2015, King John felt that he could sign it and then wiggle around it, but history turned out differently. Magna Carta also inspired latter charters. In 2017, Charter of the Forest, which set precedents for the management of shared resources, and the 1258 provisions of Oxford, which led to the development of Parliament. The principles of Magna Carta are ingrained within the British common law system and are reflected in the Canadian Constitution and our Charter of Rights and Freedom. Now that the great part of Hansard is that it captures every word said in this place for all time. So I want to acknowledge the NDP member for then riding of Timmins, James Bay, and the current opposition House Leader, who during debate on April 2nd, 2015 said, "What's interesting is some of the kings that were remembered as being the better ones actually took the heart of Magna Carta and brought it further. They started to understand that as monarchy they had to move in a different direction." During the same debate, the NDP member for Hamilton East Stony Creek said, "Magna Carta is part of Canada's cultural and political heritage. It has inspired the truly oppressed around the world. For 8 centuries, the Magna Carta has fired the hearts and minds of those who seek justice in the face of tyranny and exploitation." And during the March 20, 2018 debate, the NDP member from Oshawa said, "Magna Carta stands as a written flashpoint that has lit the fires of challenge and justice, inspiring the truly oppressed around the world. The Magna Carta represents equality before the law, trial before peers, immunity for illegal imprisonment, and taxation only by the consent of the citizenry." During the same debate, the NDP member for Toronto Danforth said, Nelson Mandela cited the Magna Carta in his defense. He lived in an unjust society under government that denied the rule of law by denying the equality of the people it meant to serve. Apartheid in South Africa denied the promises of the Magna Carta. Speaker, before I share details of the support I received from various members of Ontario legal community, I want to go back to Monday, August 11, 2018, to the Standing Committee on the Legislative Assembly that was discussing proposed changes to the standing orders. At about 9:15 a.m. on that day, there was some discussion about petitions, and the NDP member for Welland, the late Peter Cornwell, said, "The right to petition goes back to Magna Carta. It was the hard-earned right to petition the king, and it was a historical struggle, so that petition, the right to petition the king, is a Magna Carta-based right." I will always remember Peter as being unrelenting in his ability to fight for the underdog, someone who fought for change and, if nothing else, drew attention to those which he felt strongly about. In preparation for today's debate, I also reached out to some distinguished members of Ontario's legal community for their thoughts in declaring June 15th Magna Carta Day. Here is some of what I heard. Teresa Donnelly, Treasurer of Law Society of Ontario, shared her support. One of the Law Society of Ontario's primary purposes is to facilitate access to justice for the people of Ontario. The Magna Carta is the foundation of our democracy, and it should not be forgotten. Joanna Barron, Executive Director of the Canadian Constitution Foundation, said, "The Magna Carta represents the bedrock of the principle of the rule of law and the individual sphere of liberty against arbitrary power. The Canadian Constitution Foundation celebrates the life of Ms. Munro and applauds the introduction of the Magna Carta Day Act as an important recognition for all Ontarians." And William Woodward, Chair of the Federation of Ontario Law Associations, said, "On behalf of the Federation of Ontario Law Associations, I am pleased to support this bill, recognizing the Magna Carta, which has provided the foundation of the democratic principles that we as citizens enjoy. I would also like to congratulate and thank you for your efforts in guiding this legislation in memory of Julia Munro, who introduced it." They say that life can only be understood backwards, but it must live forwards. Magna Carta was the foundation. It started off what we enjoy today, the rules that we abide by in this House, the way we treat each other, the role of the government, and the role of the opposition. We take a lot for granted, Speaker, with our parliamentary democracy that we inherited from the people who came before us and fought hard to preserve it. MPP Munro introduced the same Magna Carta bill 3 times. With my introduction, this bill has now been debated 5 times and considered by 4 different legislative committees. I am so grateful to everyone here for your support to pay the ultimate tribute to Julia Munro, passing a bill in her honor that meant so much to her. I leave you with a few words from our late colleague. The ideas contained within the Magna Carta evolve over the centuries. It signifies that no one, not even the Crown, is above the law. That is such an important concept. Thank you so much, Speaker.
Thank you.